Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Ain Amira binti Azhan. My metric number is 058963 and I'm a DTM student. So today I'm going to present about computer crimes and internet. The first one is introduction about what is computer crimes and internet. New technologies create new criminal opportunities but few new types of crime. What distinguishes cybercrime from traditional criminal activity? Obviously, one difference is the use of the digital computer, but technology alone isn't sufficient for any distinction that might exist between different realms of criminal activity. Criminals do not need a computer to commit fraud, traffic in child pornography and intellectual property, steal on identity or violate someone's privacy. All those activities existed before the cyber prefix became ubiquitous. Cybercrime, especially involving the internet, represents an extension of existing criminal behavior alongside some novel illegal activities. Most cybercrime is an attack on information about individuals, corporations, or governments. Although the attacks do not take place on a physical body, they do take place on the personal or corporate virtual body, which is a set of informational attributes that define people and institutions on the internet. In other words, in the digital age, our virtual identities are essential elements of everyday life. We are a bundle of numbers and identifiers in multiple computer databases owned by governments and corporations. Cybercrime highlights the centrality of networked computers in our life, as well as the fragility of such seemingly solid facts as individual identity. And the definition for cybercrimes and internet are computer crime, the use of a computer as an instrument to further illegal ends, such as committing fraud, trafficking in child pornography, and intellectual property, stealing identities or violating privacy. Cybercrime, especially through the internet, has grown in importance as the computer has become central to commerce, entertainment, and government. Because of the early and widespread adoption of computers and the internet in the United States, most of the earliest victims and villains of cybercrime were Americans. By the 21st century, though, hardly a hamlet remained anywhere in the world that had not been touched by cybercrime of one sort or another. The first features are copyright violation. Copyright violation, at times referred to as piracy, is the use of works protected by copyright law without permission for a usage where such permission is required, thereby infringing certain exclusive rights granted to the copyright holder, such as the right to reproduce, distribute, display, or perform the protected work, or to make derivative works. The copyright holder is typically the work's creator or a publisher or other business to whom copyright has been assigned. Copyright holders routinely invoke legal and technological measures to prevent and penalize copyright violation. Copyright violation disputes are usually resolved through direct negotiation, a notice and takedown process, or litigation in civil court. Egregious or large-scale commercial infringement, especially when it involves counterfeiting, is sometimes prosecuted via the criminal justice system. Shifting public expectations, advances in digital technology, and the increasing reach of the internet have led to such widespread anonymous infringement that copyright-dependent industries now focus less on pursuing individuals who seek and share copyright-protected content online, citation needed, and more on expanding copyright law to recognize and penalize, as indirect infringers, the service providers and software distributors who are said to facilitate and encourage individual acts of infringement by others. One of the real case of copyright violation is by A&M Records vs. Napster. For those who don't remember, Napster was a popular peer-to-peer file sharing network that launched in 1999. It had an amazingly large fan base of music lovers who shared MP3s. However, 2 years later, the company was involved in a joint lawsuit filed by various record companies. They didn't like the large-scale distribution of their music for free, and so sued the company for infringement on their intellectual property. This is what makes this case one of the most famous copyright infringement cases in history. The court ruled against Napster and the company was forced to shut down the site after making a public apology and paying $26 million in damages. It was their lack of effort to reduce infringement, mixed with the fact that the company financially benefited from it, that set the decision in stone. The second one is cyberterrorism. Cyberterrorism is the use of the internet to conduct violent acts that result in or threaten the loss of life or significant bodily harm in order to achieve political or ideological gains through threat or intimidation. It is also sometimes considered an act of internet terrorism, where terrorist activities, including acts of deliberate, large-scale disruption of computer networks, especially of personal computers attached to the internet, by means of tools such as computer viruses, computer worms, phishing, and other malicious software and hardware methods and programming scripts. Cyberterrorism is a controversial term. Some authors opt for a very narrow definition, relating to deployment by known terrorist organizations of disruption attacks against information systems for the primary purpose of creating alarm, panic, or physical disruption. Others authors prefer a broader definition, which includes cybercrime. Participating in a cyber attack affects the terror threat perception, even if it isn't done with a violent approach. By some definitions, it might be difficult to distinguish which instances of online activities are cyberterrorism or cybercrime. Cyberterrorism can be also defined as intentional use of computers, networks, and public internet to cause disruption and harm for personal objective. Experienced cyberterrorists who are very skilled in terms of hacking can cause massive damage to government systems and might leave a country in fear of further attacks. The objective of such terrorists may be political or ideological, since this can be considered a form of terror. One of the real cases of cyberterrorism is teen hacks NASA and US Defense Department. The year was 1999. Jonathan James was 15 at the time, but what he did that year secured him a place in the Hackers Hall of Fame. James had managed to penetrate the computers of a US Department of Defense division and installed a backdoor on its servers. This allowed him to intercept thousands of internet emails from different government organizations, including ones containing usernames and passwords for various military computers. Using the stolen information, James was able to steal a piece of NASA software, which cost the Space Exploration Agency $41,000 as systems were shut down for 3 weeks. According to NASA, the software, purported to be worth $17 million, supported the International Space Station's physical environment, including control of the temperature and humidity within the living space. James was later caught but received a light sentence due to his young age. He committed suicide in 2008 after he was accused of conspiring with other hackers to steal credit card information. James denied the allegation in his suicide letter. The third one is cybersquatting. The term cybersquatting refers to the unauthorized registration and use of internet domain names that are identical or similar to trademarks, service marks, company names, or personal names. Cybersquatting registrants obtain and use a domain name with the bad faith intent to profit from the goodwill of the actual trademark owner. Both the federal government and the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers have taken action to protect the owners of trademarks and businesses against cybersquatting abuses. One of the real cases of cybersquatting is by My Way Betty Ford Clinic. Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation sued Germany's My Way Betty Ford Clinic for cybersquatting, trademark infringement, false advertising, and other charges in January 2020. Hazelden is one of the leading rehab centers in Minnesota. They merged with California's Betty Ford Foundation in 2014 and operate under the brand name of Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation. Apart from providing systematic rehabilitation, treatment for alcohol and drug addiction, the foundation also runs an accredited graduate school to provide academic programs to rehab professionals and an addiction research center. Casamin.com reports that the German rehab clinic tried to approach the U.S. Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation to seek permission to use Betty Ford name. Although the foundation declined that request, the German center went ahead and bought the domain mywayBettyFord.de anyway and operated the business using the same brand name. They even used the fonts and color scheme the same as the HazeldenBettyFord.org site. As you can imagine, this resulted in a lot of confusion for patients regarding the relationship between the US and German organizations. That's why the Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation sued Germany's My Way Betty Ford Clinic with the charges of cybersquatting and using their brand name without permission. As of December 1, 2020, The defendant's motion to dismiss was denied in court. This means that the plaintiff's case against the German will continue. The fourth one is identity theft. Identity theft, also called identity fraud, use of an individual's personally identifying information by someone else, often a stranger, without that individual's permission or knowledge. This form of impersonation is often used to commit fraud, generally resulting in financial harm to the individual and financial gain to the impersonator. As the amount of personal information available on the internet increased dramatically in the late 1990s and early 2000s, identity theft became a widespread concern. In the context of identity theft, identity refers to information intrinsic to a specific individual. Publicly available information such as a person's telephone number and street address, as well as confidential information, such as in the United States, a person's social security number, mother's maiden name, and credit card numbers contribute to a person's identity. By acquiring access to that information, an identity theft can impersonate someone else to commit fraud, while identity theft is often associated with financial gain. It can also be used to acquire unauthorized entry, privileges, or benefits. One of the real cases by Kenneth Gibson. Kenneth Gibson is a 47-year-old former IT information technology professional from Reno, NV. Between 2012 and 2017, he was working for a large company where he had access to the personally identifiable information of thousands of employees and customers. During this time, Gibson methodically stole data from his employer until the day he left the company. He then set up 8 computers to run an automatic scrape of the victim's information to open fraudulent accounts and transfer money. This automated system ran 24/7. Over time, Gibson opened up about 8,000 unauthorized PayPal accounts with the stolen identities he would then apply for and open credit accounts linked to those PayPal accounts, withdrawing money via cash advances. The stolen funds enabled Gibson and his family to live lavishly. He bought a boat, traveled extensively, and was allegedly a frequent gambler. By moving the money in many small increments, he was able to avoid detection for years, but like many criminals, Gibson made a critical mistake that led to his downfall. Eventually, after he got tired of having to make multiple trips to the ATM to retrieve his stolen cash, Gibson requested that PayPal mail him a check. However, the name on one of these requested checks matched one of Gibson's victims. This is where law enforcement could make their move after 4 months on the case. Gibson ultimately confessed, and the FBI was able to locate the computers he had operating in a leased office space. And the last one is salami slicing. Salami slicing tactics, also known as salami slicing, salami tactics, the salami slice strategy, or salami attacks, is a divide and conquer process of threats and alliances used to overcome opposition. With it, an aggressor can influence on and eventually dominate a landscape, typically political. Piece by piece in this fashion, the opposition is eliminated slice by slice until it realizes, usually too late, that it is virtually gone in its entirety. In some cases, it includes the creation of several factions within the opposing political party and then dismantling that party from the inside, without causing the slightest slights to protest. Salami tactics are most likely to succeed when the perpetrators keep their true long-term motives hidden and maintain a posture of cooperativeness and helpfulness while engaged in the intended gradual subversion. One of the real cases for salami slicing is by farebox servicemen. In 1996, a farebox serviceman in Edmonton, Canada, was found guilty of stealing from the city's transit agency by stealing coins from the farebox. Over 13 years, he walked away with 37 tons of coins with a face value of nearly Canada dollars 24 million, having used a magnet to lift the coins on one at a time out of the fare boxes. All coins of the Canadian dollar at that time being made primarily of steel or nickel. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison and was eligible for parole after 18 months. And the conclusion is cybercrime is becoming harder to stop as new technologies emerge. Its impact widespread and overwhelming financially. It's important to act now in order to slow its progress. Through increased awareness, improved laws which target cybercrime, and by utilizing biometrics, which greatly enhance security, the effects of cybercrime will be mitigated. As explored before, cybercriminals will only continue to find motivation in cybercrime. when they are faced with such low risk. Government's lack of funding and effort to take cybercrime seriously enough is only going to allow cybercrime to continue growing. The potentially shocking financial gains available will also only serve to motivate them even more. The fact that some statistics are a little out of date highlights limitations in accuracy but still serves the purpose in depicting the growth of cybercrime. Biometric technology is still developing and at the moment has certain limitations in regards to how accurately it can work or whether it's really an efficient way to go. Great areas for future research would be the growth in biometric technology and seeing how it will develop over time, as it should be a key area in securing one's personal information, not just for large organizations, but for individuals at home as well. Cybercrime is only going to get worse over time unless preventive measures are taken to stop it, because at the moment it's just too appealing of an option for criminals to say no to. Though not all people are victims to cybercrimes, they are still at risk. Crimes by computer vary and they don't always occur behind the computer, but they executed by computer. The hacker's identity is ranged between 12 years young to 67 years old. The hacker could live 3 continents away from its victim, and they wouldn't even know they were being hacked. Crimes done behind the computer are the 21st century problem. With the technology increasing, criminals don't have to rob banks, nor do they have to be outside in order to commit any crime. They have everything they need on their lap. Their weapons aren't guns anymore. They attack with mouse cursors and passwords. Thank you so much. That's all from me today.